What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how wide receivers can be more physical. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it teaches you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver, we are going to be traveling out to 15 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So first up, we're going to be coming out to San Francisco. Then we'll be in Orlando, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to those cities, would like to get some work in with us for 2 whole days, 8 hours total of training. We'll have DBs out there for one-on-ones. Check out that very first link below, fellas. We'd absolutely love to have some of our YouTube community at our camps. We really appreciate the support. Let's get started. So now, we're going to be talking about how you guys can execute a throw-by move, how you guys can improve your blocking skills. That's going to be the second clip we're looking at. And then we're going to talk about some other physicality tips that wide receivers need. So how do you guys do? What is a throw-by move? So let's play this full speed. So this is a dive release here from Chase Claypool, a release that we talk a lot about a lot. But this dive release, obviously, when we get a DB to commit his hips, whether I'm at the top of the route and maybe I have to slip underneath him, whether maybe I'm running a dig and we got a DB who's inside shade, you do something we call a throw-by. So a throw-by is essentially where you're trying to make a break and you got a DB like right on your hip, right? Like you're trying to run outside and he's on your outside hip. You're trying to run inside, he's on your inside hip. So you want to use whichever hand is closest to him, and you want to essentially throw him by. Now, a lot of people say that this is pass interference. This is not pass interference. Pass interference is like when you're maybe 10 yards downfield and like you're running like, let's say it's a fade ball and you got a DB here and you push him or you throw him and then make a play on the ball when the ball's in the air. Obviously, there's some other situations that can be called that, but this specifically is not that. So when you go to make this break and this DB's getting hands on you, you have to be physical. So the best 2 spots to be physical are the back of the shoulder and the back of the hip of the DB. Those are the 2 points of control I feel. Now, a lot of people will say that like, oh, well, you want to try to swat the arm of the DB, get his hands off of you. But when you're running a route full speed and you're going downhill, you need a big target to be able to hit. And his hip and his shoulder are 2 very big targets. So if you're trying to swat his hands or trying to hand fight, that's a very, very small area. Like you could miss easily, you could not get solid contact, and he'll still be able to maintain hands on you. But if you give him a good pop on the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, and you have some momentum, that can get you some separation, and that can throw you by. So that is a textbook throw-by move here by Chase Claypool. So the first thing to help you be a little bit more physical is understand that throw-by move, know how to use it, but also know when to use it. So like what's another situation you could use it based on this coverage? Like let's say, for example, he had to run a 10-yard out. What kind of leverage does this DB have? He's outside shade. So obviously if we had to run a 10-yard out, we'd probably attack him, take the inside release, and then the break point is where I'd get space. Now, ideally, I'd like to attack him, take the outside and stack. So I give a head fake inside, run the out route. But if he's right there before the outside breaking portion of this and he's right on my hip, that's when I could throw by. I'd take my left hand, put it on the back of his right shoulder, right hip, and slip underneath. So that's another situation you could use that throw by. So we went over the technique and the IQ side of when to use it. Let's play this full speed. So great job by Claypool using that dive release and then swatting him by to showcase how you can be a physical wide receiver. Okay, so now, like I said, we're going to be talking about some wide receiver blocking tips. So these are going to be 3 specific things that wide receivers can add to every single facet of their blocking game, whether it's stock blocking a DB who's in zone, whether it's blocking a DB right in press, blocking for a bubble screen, whatever it might be. So let's play this clip here from Chase Claypool. So 3 things that I like to teach when you are blocking: being patient, having a good base, and having active feet. So what a lot of people will do, especially like when they come up off the line, is that they'll get over anxious, especially the bigger guys, especially the explosive guys, is you'll get a small DB out there and you want to absolutely take his head off. So you're running at him full speed, you're coming off the line super aggressive, but when you're going out of control at a DB, all it takes is one quick cut and then he's around you. It's just like how many of you have probably caught like a bubble screen, took off running with the ball, and you had a safety just overcommit trying to take your head off, and all you do is just put one foot in the ground and slip underneath. Probably all of you, because we've all played football before. So that's essentially what a DB would do if you came at him super out of control. So you have to be under control. Now, second thing that you see here from Claypool is he's got a very wide base, right? His feet are not clicking together. It's not crazy wide, but he's got a good base. It's not like his feet are super narrow, because when you have a good base, you have a good pad level, that is a balanced position. It is a lot harder for a DB to shed somebody when he's in a good base. Think of it like this. If you're standing in front of one of your friends and you have your feet super close together and they push you as hard as they can, you're definitely going to fall back. But let's say you widen your base a little bit, lean forward, and have them push you. You're going to have a little bit more give. It's going to be harder for them to push you over. So that's essentially what you want to do when you're blocking. Now, when I say these things, you want to be patient. You want to have a good base. What people will do is their feet will die, because they equate being patient, they equate having a strong base and being low with being slow. I don't want that. You want your feet to stay active. You want to make sure that your base is strong and that you are patient. You see how Claypool never stops his feet? His feet are always driving. Because when you could get hands on a DB and you're in a good base, good pad level, you're being patient and you drive those feet, there's nothing he could do. When you have dead feet and your feet are flat in the grass and you're trying to just hand fight with him, all it takes is for him to grab your wrist and pull you, or to grab your wrist and shed. And he's making a play in that run game. So active feet, good base, good pad level, and make sure we are patient. Those are the 3 keys to blocking, fellas. Now, another thing I want to add to you guys, this is what a lot of people kind of get misconstrued about blocking, is the importance of doing something like an exercise like bench press. So if you're a wide receiver, I would focus on so much more about your hip explosion from like power cleans, hip thrusters, leg work, explosive movements with the lower half, because that's where your power comes from. You have to drive with your feet and you have to drive up with your hips. I remember one time I was talking with a lineman coach because I was trying to help my receivers block back when I coached at a high school. And I was like, what do you recommend they do? And he was saying, I'm like, what, like bench press? You know, what is it? And it was back when I was a lot younger coaching wise. And he was like, no, I would never have my linemen do bench press, because all their power from blocking, you got to have a good punch, obviously, but all their power comes from their legs and their hips. So why would you have them work bench press? Linemen should never want to be on their back. So you should be trying to generate all this force from your legs, from your hips, and trying to drive up. And that comes from your lower half, because in football, low man is always going to win. That makes a lot of sense to me. If you have a different opinion than that, I would love to hear it, if you want to leave that in the comment section, but that made a lot of sense to me. And that's something that I think a lot of wide receivers need to do more of, is that explosive work, that lower half work, not worrying about, the bench press and the showy exercises. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Claypool getting low, driving those legs, driving from those hips, and highlighting those blocking techniques for us to be more physical. So now, this is another example from Chase Claypool. I honestly think at this Senior Bowl, it's such good film of him, and this is what got me really excited about him when he was first entering the league. And I've gotten a chance to work out on a field next to him before, and he is an insanely big dude that moves extremely well for his size. And a lot of the stuff that he does is something that especially this release, is something that a lot of bigger wide receivers can take home. Maybe you're on the taller, slower side of things. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but what he does works for guys that are tall, going up against smaller, quicker DBs. So this release is called a shock release. So to help you be more physical as a wide receiver, you need to have releases like this in your toolbox. So it's called a shock release. So let's play at full speed. So essentially you're throwing a block, and then you're snapping down, or you're running a fade, you're doing whichever at the top of the break point. It doesn't really matter. But this shock release right here is completely legal. A lot of people think also that this is illegal. But when it's within 5 yards, it is legal. It is considered hand fighting. It is considered press hand fighting, press work, however you want to think of it. So a shock release is essentially a block. If you're a taller wide receiver, I would use this more so like at the beginning of a game. You're trying to set the tone. Maybe you got a DB who's on the shorter side of things. You want him to give you some respect and start to back off. A shock release is a great way to do it. So pretty much essentially it's the same mechanics as a block. You got to get low. You have to drive from your legs. You got to be in a good base. You got to shock him. You have to explode, and the low man is going to win. Because when you could shock him like this, get him to pop up, maybe get him to shoot back, that will guarantee get you some separation. You know what I mean? It's going to get you that extra space off the line to where you could go make something happen on a fade, on a stop, on a comeback, on a dig, whatever the situation is. Man, honestly, I like this shock release. A lot of the times you could use it when you're getting the ball, but I like it even when you're not getting the ball. And so many wide receivers don't do this. They don't work when the ball's not going to them. I see it, fellas. I go to these games and you see receivers backside. They're not doing nothing. There's the ball snapped and they just stand there because they're trying to take a play off. You set up the other routes that you get, the chances you get, the opportunities you get by doing stuff like this, even when you're not getting the ball, is that earns you that respect of the DB. Guarantee you he will think twice about coming down to press if you do this like right off the bat, first quarter of the game. Let's play this thing again, full speed. Great example of Chase Claypool using this shock release to get some separation on that stop route. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, we are coming out to 15 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. Like I said, it's 8 hours of training over the course of 2 days. A lot of information, small group setting. It's not one of those big 150 kids showcase camps, and we're going to have DBs out there to work on one-on-one concepts with you guys. So check out that very first link below. If you're local to one of these cities, we'd absolutely love to have you out. I'll see you guys next time.